This is The Law Show on CL 650. Now back to the show.
Always crushing in the same car.
And welcome back to the show. We're talking on The Law Show about personal injury. We have Kevin Hyde here, partner at McQuarrie LLP, and Nate Hartney, associate at McQuarrie LLP, formerly known as McQuarrie Hunter, just recently changed the name, shortened it up to McQuarrie. It's good to have you both here. And we're talking about liability, who's at fault. You know, you have a situation where maybe it's a more serious accident and the police show up, because often if it's a fender bender or something, the police aren't called. And you have a situation where the officer writes you a ticket saying you went through a red light or you were speeding, and that will impact ICBC's view of the case. And can you dispute that?
Yeah. So if you're in an accident and the police show up and issue you a ticket, that doesn't mean that you're at fault. That isn't binding. You can dispute that ticket. You have 30 days to dispute it. And one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to go to a traffic court and be found guilty. If that happens, you still might have a claim because it could proceed to court for a personal injury action, and the judge might find, you might disagree with what the JP found and find that there's some split liability there. If that ticket is dismissed, then it's as if it never happened, and you still have a potentially valid claim. So the police officer's assessment isn't binding. He didn't see it. He didn't see what happened, and it's a summary investigation.
Okay. There's often cases as well, Zach, where both parties are issued a ticket. One perhaps for following too closely, the other for speeding. So it's up to the judge ultimately at trial or negotiations with ICBC to determine actually who's at fault and what percentage at fault they are.
So I'm in an accident. I phone, Kevin or Nate, and I say, this is the situation, and I have this moving violation from the police. Do you go to try and get this ticket changed or thrown out, or so who does that part of the process?
Someone at our firm, if you retain us and we disagree with the assessment on liability, of course, and take on your case, of course, we'll go and dispute that ticket on your behalf in traffic court, because if you don't do anything about it and simply pay the ticket, the court's going to look at that, or ICBC is going to look at that and think you've accepted some responsibility for the accident.
See, even being that naive and just saying, well, it's $100 or whatever, I don't know, pick a number, what, $150 to get rid of this ticket, they're could be affecting their case, right?
It's not the be all end all by any means. Obviously, ICBC will point that out if you're the plaintiff and you don't dispute that ticket, but that can be dealt with even after the fact as well by simply saying, I didn't have time, I'm too busy, it wasn't worth my time to miss work, or I couldn't miss work to go dispute that ticket. So I didn't attend that court that day and the ticket was simply issued, or I didn't bother disputing it because I thought it wasn't worth my time. And that testimony is that's the evidence that you'd simply present, and you can just take the position that you don't agree with liability, and your lawyer will advocate on your behalf.
Okay. Hit and runs. Now, I guess there's different kinds of hit and runs. There's the kind where you were hit as a pedestrian and the car drove away, or you were hit in your car and they drove away. So what's more common?
What's more common?
Yeah.
Well, hit and runs are more common than I actually thought, and that's a shame that people, when you're in an accident, you'd hit someone and then just peel on out of there, but it does happen. And there's some important things that you need to do pursuant to your policy with ICBC when a hit and run occurs. Obviously, the first thing you should do is report it to the police. Call them as quickly as possible. Report it to the police. They'll have it on file then. And when you're dealing with ICBC, they can always go and obtain a police report. The second thing you should do is look around for other witnesses and get their contact information, and you can provide that when you report the hit and run into ICBC. You can provide them with those witnesses. If there is no witnesses, or you're looking for more witnesses that might have seen more to the accident, if you're able to, or when you're able to, depending on your injuries, you should go back within a reasonable time and maybe post a sign on a lamp post or knock on a few doors around the neighborhood.
So when I see those at a intersection, did you see anything on this date, that's for what reason?
That's because you have a duty under your insurance policy to make all reasonable steps to locate a witness to the accident to assist ICBC in identifying who that driver was.
And how exhaustive does that need to be?
What I'm going through right now is essentially the steps you should take.
Okay.
Contact the police, post a sign, maybe knock on some doors or check in if there's a restaurant or somewhere that someone might have been seen the accident, to go back and investigate that, and let your lawyer know that, or if you don't have a lawyer yet, let ICBC know that.
And why is that important? Because it determines the outcomes significantly, right?
ICBC suspects fraud in some cases, and there's no other witness. There's only your word. So you have a duty to try to show that, to assist ICBC to locate this other driver.
But if you were injured, you can only obtain a certain amount, a pool of funds under your policy.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
You're limited in a hit and run situation. You're limited to $200,000, and you also have a duty to report that to ICBC. Notify them this within 6 months. Start your claim within 6 months. Yeah.
Now, if you have a witness and you can put together some other pieces of the puzzle, you could get access to somebody's insurance policy, which may be worth
beneficial
much more,
to
right?
you, especially if it's a very significant accident. You want to be able to identify that driver.
How hard is it to get that? Like, I mean, from somebody hitting you and driving away, or is it successful? You can typically find the person that hit you?
I've actually, when I was a junior lawyer and working for a more senior personal injury lawyer, I actually went and knocked on doors in the area. And at the time I was thinking, and our client was quite significantly injured. It was a motorcycle vehicle accident. They were hit, knocked off their bike, broke their leg, their hip, I believe. So I went and knocked on doors on his behalf and actually found someone, a teenager who witnessed the accident and identified the make of the vehicle and the color of the vehicle, and provided that information to ICBC and the police. And they actually did track down the person eventually. I don't know exactly the circumstances, but they'd found that driver, and we had access to a larger insurance policy as a result.
That's good. Good investigative work.
I thought so. That's highlight of my career. I found a star witness for the trial. And
now, do you ever use investigators, private investigators, to do that kind of stuff?
We do, yeah. And we often, when liability is in dispute, we'll send a private investigator out to take independent statements from various witnesses to the accident and get them written down and signed. All
right. So, I've been in an accident and I haven't contacted a lawyer, but I haven't settled with ICBC either. And you're maybe just suffering through ailments on your own. How long do you have before you need to start a process here?
You need to file what's called a notice of claim, civil claim, or a NOC, within 2 years of the date of the cause of action, which in this case, in personal injury context, would be the date of the accident itself. There is some exceptions if you're not of age of majority. If you don't have that 2-year limitation, the 2 years starts running from the date of your 19th birthday. So you have up until the age that you're 21. There's also other, a slip and fall case where perhaps you've added the government. You have to. There's some different notification requirements. You have to notify them within 2 months and start your claim within 6 months.
So that is if you
city or municipality
slipped on city property because they didn't clear the snow, for example.
Exactly.
Right. So that's a very different. So. When, Nate, do you think that someone should come to see a personal injury lawyer after an accident where they have been injured? Should they wait and see if they get better after a couple of weeks, or should they come and see you right away, do you think?
I think it all depends on the circumstances. If it's a really, really serious injury, the advantage to seeing a lawyer sooner is that the lawyer might be able to get you access to more funds for rehabilitation and more funds for household services and income loss, because under the no-fault benefits in BC, there's everyone's entitled to $150,000 in rehabilitation benefits, as well as on top of that income loss. So it's not uncommon for us to assist clients in getting that set up through ICBC and get that funding in place right away.
We can hold your hand through that process, make sure ICBC is paying for fair treatment. We also...
so there's been no settlement yet. You still have access to that money.
That's right. And we also, ICBC will try to get you to release your clinical records, and they'll go back several years on a fishing expedition looking for pre-existing injuries or something else they can point the finger at. So you definitely should not sign these. You should That's
Are
the
you
advantage
you ever have to sign them?
you should go see a lawyer, and the lawyer can control all the documents that come to the lawyer first. We can redact the documents. We only have a duty to disclose what's material. We prevent ICBC from going on what's called a fishing expedition. And we protect your privacy as well. Things in your medical records, you don't need ICBC looking at those if they're not related to the accident itself. We'll redact all those for you and control what ICBC sees, to control the document disclosure process. And that's a huge advantage to your claim, because we don't want you going out there and essentially messing up your claim, and ICBC getting something from the past and hanging on their hat on that to convince you that your claim isn't as strong as it might be. The lawyer will guide you through all of that, and you should come see us before signing any releases or being called in to attend an ICBC office to sign releases to get at your records.
So I guess I'm backing this up. You should basically get in touch with you quickly.
The sooner the better.
Yeah?
Yeah. And sometimes, even if you come and see us, we might not sign you up if we think it could be a fairly minor accident that you might not need representation, but we'll, temporarily hold your hand through the beginning stages of the process, tell you to go see your doctor, and then maybe see what the doctor says and have a follow-up meeting. And then if it looks like this is a claim that might be, you might need a lawyer for, then we'll sign you up at a second meeting.
All right. So we've had a very interesting discussion talking about, you've been in an accident, you've been injured. What do you do now? Why is it important to get a lawyer on side? Splitting the liability, how that's important. Hit and runs, rear-enders, all kinds of different things. So it's been wonderful having our two guests in today, Kevin Hyde, partner at McQuarrie LLP, and Nate Hartney, associate. Thanks, gentlemen, for both coming in today, and we're going to have you back soon. That's all the time we have for The Law Show. I'm Zach Spencer. I'll speak to you next time.